Do you have a black thumb? I mean, if you feel completely cursed with a total lack of gardening skills, trust me, you are definitely not alone. Every single spring, millions of people plant a garden, watch it slowly wither away, and then just blame themselves for failing. But what if the problem isn't a lack of natural talent? What if the real culprits are actually common, completely invisible mistakes that you don't even realize you're making? Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into the specific garden mistakes Reddit absolutely hates that beginners do. We're going to dive into some brutally honest, hard-earned advice from thousands of seasoned Reddit gardeners to demystify why plants actually die. And listen, I promise you, it is not because nature hates you.
So the crucial point here is this. Most of these fatal errors actually look like the right thing to do, and that is the great paradox of beginner gardening. Well-intentioned actions, things like watering a slightly drooping plant or packing your garden beds completely full of diverse little seedlings, are secretly the very things killing your garden before it even has a fighting chance.
To figure out why this happens, we're going to follow a quick timeline through 4 main phases. 1. The planning trap. 2. The planting trap. 3. The care trap. And finally, 4. The mindset shift. Let's get right into it.
Okay, Phase 1. The planning trap. This covers everything that goes wrong before you even buy a single plant.
Every spring, garden centers become incredibly dangerous places for beginners. You walk in and see rows of beautiful tomatoes, these giant hydrangeas, exotic flowers with bright little tags promising easy care. Beginners fall in love with the look and choose the plant first. But then, 3 weeks later, that lovely shade fern is crisping up in the afternoon sun. Experienced gardeners use a totally different strategy. They choose the location first. They look at their actual space and ask, okay, what actually grows well right here? That single shift will literally save you months of frustration.
And understanding that location means being brutally honest about sunlight, because sunlight is everything. A lot of people wildly overestimate how much sun their yard actually gets. When a plant tag says full sun, it usually means at least 6 solid hours of direct sunlight. We're talking direct sun here, not just bright ambient light. If you get this wrong, no amount of expensive fertilizer is going to save a plant that's living in the wrong conditions.
The final planning trap? Scale. The absolute most common warning from the Reddit community is this simple piece of advice: start smaller than you think. In April, you get super inspired, right? You decide to build 6 giant raised beds to create some massive survival farm. But by July, watering takes forever, the weeding is completely exhausting, and half your crops go unharvested anyway. A tiny, manageable, successful garden will teach you so much more than a giant failing one.
All right, moving on to Phase 2, the planting trap. This is all about the invisible foundations of your garden.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive shift in focus. Beginners naturally fixate on the visible part of gardening, the plants themselves. They'll go buy cheap dirt labeled garden soil and then frantically pump in liquid fertilizer trying to rescue weak leaves. But Reddit gardeners obsess over the invisible part. Feed the soil, not the plant. Good soil holds moisture without becoming a swamp, and it actually supports root growth. This is exactly why experts practically worship compost. It builds the healthy, foundational structure that your roots desperately need.
Then we've got the mistake that seasoned gardeners just roast constantly on Reddit, planting way too close together. In spring, those tiny little seedlings look so lonely sitting in a big bed. Beginners pack everything tightly together because, well, it feels more efficient. But the summer reality is drastically different. A mature zucchini plant will consume half the bed like a green monster. When plants are packed that tight, they fight for sunlight, airflow completely disappears, diseases spread like wildfire, and harvesting, it becomes a literal jungle expedition. Remember, a garden that looks kind of sparse in spring usually looks perfect in summer.
That brings us to Phase 3, the care trap, or as I like to call it, loving your plants to death. If there's one desperate, all-caps plea constantly echoing across Reddit gardening forums, it is this: stop watering it. Ironically, most plants die from way too much love. New gardeners worry their plant looks thirsty the absolute second a leaf droops, so they pour on more water. Or the soil feels just a tiny bit dry on the very top, so they water again. They don't realize it, but they are inadvertently drowning their garden. It all comes down to a biological reality that's super easy to forget. Roots need oxygen too. When soil stays permanently soaked, roots literally rot away underground long before the plant's leaves show any obvious signs of trouble. And once those roots are gone, the plant can't drink anyway. A fantastic rule of thumb to remember is that dry soil is usually much easier to fix than rotted roots.
Honestly, sometimes the absolute best thing you can do for a struggling plant is absolutely nothing. So, how do you actually water correctly? Well, first off, ditch those strict watering schedules. Different containers dry out at totally different speeds, and the weather changes everything. Instead, use this boring but extremely effective method. Step 1. Check the soil first. Step 2. Stick your finger a couple of inches down into the dirt. Step 3. If it feels moist below the surface, just wait. Yep, it is really that simple.
Another massive care trap is falling for viral internet hacks without actually looking at the science. You've definitely seen the videos. People dumping fresh coffee grounds everywhere, burying whole banana peels, scattering eggshells like confetti. But real science tells us that context matters. Fresh coffee grounds can actually mess with your soil chemistry if they aren't composted first. Eggshells, they take forever to break down. Tossing uncomposted homemade concoctions straight into your pots can actually damage your plants rather than help them.
Finally, phase 4, the mindset shift, where you learn to, well, expect failure.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive disconnect for beginners between what they see online and reality. On one side, we have social media gardening, perfectly painted raised beds, overflowing harvest baskets, and, cinematic sunsets. But on the other side, we have real gardening, failed crops, dead plants, weird bugs, and ruined experiments. Social media is just showing you the highlight reel. It completely hides the harsh seasons that went wrong and the literal years of trial and error it took to get that one perfect basket.
When you finally strip away all the social media filters and the viral miracle hacks, you're left with the boring advice that absolutely works. Healthy soil, correct sunlight, proper spacing, consistent watering, patience. Success doesn't come from expensive tools or magic hacks. It comes from simply understanding how plants actually live and working alongside them.
Which brings us to probably the most comforting truth you're going to hear today. Every single gardener kills plants. No, seriously, even the experts. The difference is entirely in the mindset. Experienced gardeners do not view a dead plant as a personal failure or proof that they're cursed with a black thumb. They view it as valuable information. It just means the conditions were wrong, maybe the timing was off, or a sudden heat wave hit out of nowhere. It's not a failure, it is a lesson.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What lesson will your next dead plant teach you? Gardening isn't about controlling nature or forcing it to be perfect. It's about paying attention, making adjustments, and learning from your beautiful, inevitable mistakes. If you've made the errors we talked about today, congratulations. You are officially gardening. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, the next time your plant looks a little tired, please, for the love of all things green, don't drown it.